Welcome, friends. I'd like to invite my next guest here. Creighton Hobbs is going to join us. Thank you, Creighton.
Oh, man, thank you for having me on the Ed Hartman Wild World of Music Film show. And I love your backdrop. That is awesome.
Well, it's disappearing if I go the wrong way.
Well, right. Yeah. That's better. That's better than a sci-fi movie I could make,
yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, if for anybody who's been listening to this, and it's a growing crowd, I'm sure, thousands of millions of listeners in the future. Anyway, I've been inviting filmmakers to talk about music and film and their films and whatever we come up with. As a composer, I score films, and then as a producer, I've gotten involved in filmmaking too. So I'm kind of my goal is to learn as much as I can about filmmaking, and so that's one reason I kind of started this idea, and it gives me an excuse to talk to filmmakers. Hey,
that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, so what we're doing is I kind of have my basic 10 questions that I'm starting with people to get us kind of rolling on this, and gives you a background on this. I watched Creighton's film is on Amazon, and it's called How Many Chances, and it's an autobiographical feature about his challenges.
Yeah, right. I'll give a little spoiler. I'm like a cat. I have 9 lives, and I think 5 of them's gone. Yeah.
You got 24 lives.
Right. It's pretty bad when you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, how are you alive again? It's like, well.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get to that. So where are you from and where are you now?
Well, I grew up in a very, very small little southern town. It's called Escatawba, Mississippi. And the town was so small that the name of the town is bigger than probably the actual town. there's like one red light. And so it's on the Gulf Coast. Right. So people, if you say Gulf Coast, they're like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. It's out there. And actually a little fun fact is the same small little town I'm from. You ever heard of that band 3 Doors Down?
Yeah.
I grew up with them.
Yeah.
So we're both from the same little small thing. And now I live in another small town that's just over the state line in Alabama. So I'm here in basically Mobile, Alabama, but it's like a suburb or something. We have one grocery store and we have 3 red lights instead of 1. So I'm moving up, and I'm moving on up.
So complete mileage from A to B has been how far? From where you started and where you are?
As in lengthwise, it's maybe 20 miles away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Not saying you haven't been outside of the area. I assume you've been outside.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I moved from Chicago back in the late 70s to Seattle, and that's a 2,000 mile move. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, a little different. And okay, all right. And how did you start in music, film? Sorry, I guess it'd be more on the film side for you, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, my career, I guess you could say, started in 1999, and a friend of mine he had his own local television station in Mobile, and his mom and dad was paying for it for some reason, and he's like, look, Creighton, come on my show and help me make it better. I was like, okay. So I saw it and I was like, dude, you got a show where you've got clowns coming on juggling. And I was like, we could do so much more. And it just escalated from there. I started learning more and self-learning about film. I started meeting and networking out, and That was in 99. And here I am in 2021. And I've just recently got How Many Chances on Amazon Prime and other places,
Right.
So,
Okay. So it's been about 20 years that you've been
hmm
active in there. Okay.
yeah.
And why? Why did you start getting into filmmaking?
Well, as I was growing up, I was always the odd one out, meaning that I had all these stories in my head, and not only could I see these stories, but I could figure out a way to make them happen. And I've always told people, I was like, I cannot work on a car for nothing. But if you want me to tell you a story and film, I'm your guy. But working on your car, nope, that's not me.
Right,
But,
right.
you know,
Yeah. So you've never been a 9 to 5 person, I take it.
I used to be a real big 9 to 5. Me and my dad, we owned a pharmacy, and
Hmm.
my dad is in the documentary. That
Okay.
I've interviewed as well, which is so great. And but he owned a pharmacy, and like I was working up there for since I know when I was 12 all the way up to when I was 20 or something. So
George Bailey. You know who George
yeah,
Bailey is?
yeah.
From the Christmas movie. What's that called? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Working at the pharmacy.
Right, yeah.
Got to get that heart medication to Mr. Works.
Right.
Whatever. Anyway, wow. Okay. All right. And and then what's your inspirations from film side?
Well, my inspirations were, I guess, as in movies that I've
Yeah, movies,
watched, and
filmmakers.
Alfred Hitchcock is a big, big influencer. Also, um, probably I would say Quentin Tarantino is an influencer that I like, and Nolan Ryan, believe it or not. And the reason I like those directors, and I take my filming is in a way off of them.
Hmm.
Their influences in my film. Every filmmaker, they don't say that in line. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's because none of those directors went to film school. None of them. They just got out there and they did it. And to me, that's the inspiration for myself, because I went out there and I got in the thick of it. I learned it. I read books and I did everything that I could to make these stories, a form of entertainment for people to
Right.
watch.
And if you started in '99, then you were probably working with, some kind of a video camera, uh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The camcorders. Yeah. The
Right.
little,
Yeah.
yeah. I think they're 8 millimeters, and little,
High eight.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like they look like a cassette tape or something,
Right.
and
Yeah. I
yeah.
still I still have one in my studio. Just I use occasionally when I have students that are still using VHS.
Yeah, right.
But it
Yeah.
was a pain to get into iMovie. So, yeah, no, different time, and I grew up with Super 8 film. So,
Right.
and that was a whole nother world, and I could never get sound with it. So,
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I've always told filmmakers that are wanting to get into it, I'm like, look, if you got an old camera like that sitting around, use it in your film, because that's a better effect versus doing it in editing. You've
That's
actually
true.
filmed it in that real, like Super 8, that
Yeah,
grainy lookage, and why not? Just go get it and transfer it to digital.
right. Yeah, I still have my Super 8 camera. Actually,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
two. Yeah. All right. Well, and that's very interesting because I mean, I watched your film. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, it's
Thank you.
the the story of what you went through is intense. And what's kind of interesting about the timing of this interview is there's another filmmaker I'm hopefully going to talk to in a couple of weeks, local in Seattle, and he made a similar documentary he's working on right now, and he had some pretty wild mental health issues, bipolar and things like that. And it's a really open, in your face, here's me. And I'm
Mhm.
fascinated by both of you guys because you're putting yourselves out there in this truly major way,
Mhm.
and you're exposing everything. It's one thing for a filmmaker to do a documentary about another subject. That's a completely, I mean, that person can be a serial killer. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me as a filmmaker or whatever. But you're talking about yourself. So everything you're
Uh-huh.
laying out in the public is like, okay, here's my thing, and this is me. So I assume you had to make some pretty major choices when you decided. Of course, you made a book first about this, right?
Hmm.
You'd already kind of
Right.
put the word out, correct?
Hmm. Yeah. I published the book about 9 years before the documentary film came out.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
but yeah.
that gave you a nice outline for the film then.
And like other things, like I was able to get feedback from people who read the book. They was like, yeah, we love the book, and so I was able to just pick up little bits of information here and there, and I was able to add stuff to the documentary, like what I talk about my godchildren that got murdered.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
oh, right.
Sorry. It's
Yeah.
tragic. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on. Um, okay. So, and then I mean, right now, as you're promoting the film, what's the experience like? I mean, obviously, you're doing interviews and things like that. Is it an odd experience to again put yourself out here about a film about you? How does that feel?
Yeah, it can be a little odd, but I've always told people, they was like, don't it feel like, they asked me what you just asked me, right? And I tell them, well, the good thing is, if I ever got into a serious relationship and I got asked the question, tell me about you. Really, I can go to Amazon Prime and just be like, here you go,
Right.
watch this. It saves me a bunch of time. Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's true. It's your psychological business like
You're
card.
right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you got more guts than I do. Um,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we're moving through this. Yeah, and you're talking about Hitchcock. I appreciate Hitchcock a lot, and he worked with Bernard Herrmann, great film composer, and you had some interesting musical choices as a documentary. It's pretty wall to wall music, which is typical for documentaries. The music is
Yeah.
generally there to kind of create some atmosphere, some suspense, and build. And you use some nice tracks in there. I was
Thank you.
curious where you found the tracks. Were they out there in royalty free land?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't free, but it was
Right.
like, I signed up for, I think it's called Envato.com, Envato Elements or something. And they've just got a gob of music.
Yeah.
It's unreal. You can just type in the search bar what,
Right.
sad, cinematic, whatever, and you just listen and listen and listen. And if you
Right.
find something that you like or want to use, you read the description of, their and the artist puts it up there, and it's like, well,
Right.
you know, you can use it once for your film. That's about it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Or whatever they want,
Yeah.
and that's what I was able. It made my job as a editor way, 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 way faster and easier.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to put something in that was not good, because I was like, I always try to put myself in the audience, um, shoes. And it's like, if I was somebody who did not know this, would this music capture me, or would this music interest me, or would it make me hit the mute button? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was interesting. I just scored a doc for somebody who did about DACA. I'm going to interview that filmmaker in a bit. Um, and I had to kind of choose between more kind of background music and enhanced score, something. And I was trying to score it as much as possible. Documentaries tend to work more where you create the images first, the story, and then the images, and then you add the
Yeah.
music to edit against that. And you change the images to adjust to the music sometimes, and vice versa. And when I do music videos, I sometimes start with a track and then add visuals later for music video.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in your situation, so when you got those tracks, did you find that you started to edit the video more once you put the tracks in place? Or were you, because you could get tighter sync when you do that?
Yeah, like when I filmed the scenes, I kind of already knew in my mind where I wanted the music feel to go. Like when I did the baseball is the name of the game, where I talk about, I got hit in the head
Yeah.
as a kid, but that took place in 1984. So when I was filming all of that, I was like, it'd be kind of fun is to have a retro 80s rock
Right. Yeah.
band, I
Yeah.
was like, but I, I wanted to kind of give that little Stranger Things 80s
Yeah.
rock,
Right.
to
That's right.
where it would play with the visuals, as work with them, I should say.
Sure. Yeah. 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 No, there's a lot of choices in there, and
Yeah.
it's a couple hours, so that means you had a lot of time to fill as far as tunes on there.
Mm.
I mean, the DACA film I did was maybe 15, 20 minutes, something like that, and
Yeah.
that can take a couple of weeks to create just for that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've been working on this for a long good minute,
Yeah.
and
How long?
so
How long have you worked on this film, as far as from when you started the script?
let's see. Um, Pre-production started, I believe in November of 2019. And after I was done with the planning and this and that and trying to get interviews, and oh, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
but but January of 2020, I started filming and going full force. And I mean, it was just like every day I'd wake up and film, 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 and interview and interview and interview. And then that left me a couple months. And then I was able to send it off to my distributor. And
Right. And then COVID hit to it, and part of that.
yeah,
And then you created some
actually,
scenes
yeah,
from it, which was nice. I got a little
yeah,
tour of Biloxi.
right. Yeah, that was so creepy. It's like,
Hey,
because
at
this is
the worst, you got B-roll for a sci-fi flick.
exactly. That's exactly
Smart
right.
move.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a lot of filmmakers were out and about in downtown Seattle filming B-roll for future films for sure. I mean, when you get that
Right.
opportunity again, it was like nothing. I was down there and picking up some film stuff, and it was eerie. I mean, it was just downtown Seattle was just
Yeah.
it felt
Nothing.
like
It's
the last
like,
man on earth.
yeah, I know. I know. I was like, gosh, I was like, and now it's like I am legend, I was like, at
Right.
least it's like at least Will Smith had a dog. I didn't have anything but a camera,
Yeah.
it's
Well, there's the original Charlton Heston film that was kind of based on. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Anyway,
That's a good one. I forgot about
that's
that one.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Okay. And as far again, I mentioned kind of Hitchcock and Herman. Are there any filmmaker composer combinations you can think of that you've kind of liked? Again, this is indulging me as a composer.
Sure. I am a huge fan of Hans Zimmer.
Yeah,
I and who else that I love? Um,
I've seen Zimmer's masterclass.
oh really? Yeah,
Music is emotion.
yeah, yeah. And I can't think. No, I think Hans Zimmer's he did um Batman's The Dark Knight, didn't he? I think.
Boy, I can't remember.
I think
Probably so. The original
probably
Batman in the '90s or whatever was Danny Elfman, but
Danny Elfman. That's who I couldn't think of. Yeah, Danny
yeah,
Elfman. I
yeah.
love his stuff. Another one. Uh oh gosh, I can't think of the guy's name. It just left me. But the one guy who does most of Spielberg's work,
That's John
um,
Williams. Yeah,
John Williams. Oh my gosh, I could sit there and listen to John Williams
yeah.
just put it hit repeat. You know.
Well, yeah, John Williams is a thematic composer. He writes themes for all his characters and in the movies and stuff like that. So it's very operatic. And
Hmm.
he's a brilliant musician. I mean, he's
Yeah.
we're very lucky to live a time when he's alive to kind of watch it. And I watched him, conduct the Boston Pops on top of that. So thorough performer. And he did a lot of television back in the 50s and 60s, TV themes as Johnny Williams. So he
Ah.
was kind of a new jazz and all the rest of that. So really, what a well-rounded composer. And he's pen and paper.
Yeah.
I don't think he even owns a computer. So, wow, what a nice concept that is.
Right.
Yeah, man. Well, no, I mean, yeah, you got to go to Williams and Spielberg, and that's really one of the tremendous collaborations that's ever existed in film and music.
Mhm.
For both of those guys to work at such a high level, it's one thing if it's kind of independence and all the rest of that. Both of those guys top of their game to kind of come together and
Yeah.
keep working, a bunch. And
Mhm.
then as far as favorite films of yours, anything come to mind?
Oh gosh. I am a huge nerd guy. I mean, like very nerdy guy. Like I love the Hobbit trilogy. You know, one, two, and three. The Hobbit.
Hmm.
Um, I love Lord of the Rings. Um, if you put on the Avengers or Star Wars or basically Disney Plus, I'll sit there all day and just watch it. It's like there. I have friends of mine that'll call me like, "Are you watching Disney Plus?" Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
have yet to
I
see
am a big.
WandaVision. I haven't seen WandaVision yet.
Oh, to me, WandaVision, it teaches you how to watch television again.
Really? Huh,
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
And but on the flip side of it, I like horror. I like but I don't like the gore horror, like the 1980s slasher films. But I enjoy those psychological thrillers,
Yeah.
like Seven, and just the things that you can watch, and it makes you really think and gets you lost in that story. And I guess that's where my documentary stuff goes in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a definite horror concepts in your documentary.
And
My favorite horror movie is 1963, Robert Weiss, The Haunting.
the
If you've
haunting.
ever seen that, there was a remake of it in the '90s. It was yeah, but
Yeah,
this is
right.
this is pure psychological horror.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of it's Ghostbusters basically, or yeah, it's like Ghost
Yeah.
Adventures back then before there was such a thing. Staying in a haunted house. It's a Shirley Jackson novel. It just scares the bejesus out of
Wow.
me to this day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what I love about it is that there'll be these long um, images of the wall of a room where there's wallpaper and image, and you can just make out a face there. and and it's just and there's no face there, but it's just the way he centers the image there. There's eyes, and we tend to matrix that, and then there's just this this weird
Hmm.
voices going on.
Oh yeah, see, yeah,
That's it to me.
and
That's it. Everybody I've told has always gone, "Wow, I've never seen that." And they like that was incredible. And
it's
Robert
been a
Wise,
long.
he did like West Side Story. What I mean, I was all
Right.
over the map as a filmmaker. Yeah. And then as far as music, what's your listening playlist these days?
um, I'm one of those where I got to be in the mood for something.
Mm,
But if like if I'm just like on the road traveling, I like pop rock or pop rock. I like alternative rock. Um, but I also like classical. It kind of calms me. The Beethoven, the Mozarts, and things of classical, type of stuff. But um, and then sometimes I get in those historical moods where I just want to hear old Gaelic Irish music, and I want to hear uh, like old Italian songs and things of like that. So it really depends on my where I'm at in my mood, you know.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I have a really eclectic taste, and
Mhm.
listeners may know I'm into Zappa.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate to great musicians. That I mean, if I
Mhm.
feel they're really good as musicians, I tend to listen to them more, just because
Mhm.
I'm impressed. Like Chick Corea just passed away. Just all the musician friends I know are in complete desperation about that
Yeah.
because he was so genius level,
Mhm.
as a musician. So anyway.
Mhm.
And then again, genres of film. So horror is kind of a thing. And are there horror directors you tend to like?
Yeah. Besides they offered Hitchcock, I really, believe it or not, I enjoy Rob Zombie stuff
Hmm.
when he directed. I don't, he's one of those you either love him or hate him. There is really no kind of like, you know what I mean? You're not like, but it's either you're a Rob Zombie director fan or you're like, nah, I just didn't like him.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
um, probably I would think that would be my numero
Yeah.
uno.
Yeah.
Him.
Well, and you mentioned Hitchcock, so obviously with Psycho,
Hmm.
you have ultimate psychological horror,
Yeah,
that sort of thing. So
yeah.
that would fit on there.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, because Hitchcock to me, I mean, he just knew how to tell the tale.
Yeah.
And if you can make a movie from the '60s and stuff, and people are still talking about it,
Yeah. That's right.
you've done something right. I don't,
Well, oh, and the film I scored and produced is a 1938 silent sci-fi, As the Earth Turns. That up there.
Oh,
And
wow.
anyway, it's long story, but that director he made that when he was 20 in Seattle with no money. So, ultimate indie guerrilla indie film. Anyway, it's going to be on Turner Classics. So what's interesting is I have two other films he did previously. I have short; they're really fragments, and they're both horror. I'll send you some links on this. They're going to be on a
Yeah.
they're going to be on a DVD. I'm just finishing that up, a documentary about him. But one of them is kind of a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the other one is a mummy style. So
Oh, wow.
these are all silent, black and white films, So
Yeah.
and he was into horror growing up, and I think the same
Yeah.
rules apply back then. Is that horror was easier to produce if you're kind
Hmm.
of starting off. It's to this day, it's kind of a go-to genre for people that you can kind of get away with a lot, even if it's kind of silly. People tend to buy into it,
Yeah.
drama, comedy, boy, those are tough. especially comedy. Man,
Oh,
because comedy can just fall flat, and you really don't know how it's going to come out until
hmm
people are actually watching it. And usually
yeah.
that's too late.
I
So,
know. I have had so many people that's like, why don't you make a comedy? And I'm like, no,
yeah,
because you can even watch like what I call from the top 10 big boys studios. And uh, even if there's some one little minute thing in the whole movie, that's what the people who watched it, that's all they'll talk about is like how bad that one little, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't want to do comedy. I was like, I make enough mistakes with my stuff I do now.
And and comedy can be time, that's linked up. And what's funny today just may not be funny in a week. I mean,
You're
or
right.
it could be bad form. I mean, it can be
Yeah.
PC problems. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, all right. Okay, so let's get to a little bit about your film. This is a epic um, documentary about your entire life, from
You're right.
literally the first moment of birth on, and just in a few minutes, just a brief summary of some of the
Yeah.
some of the highlights and lowlights, just some concepts. You don't have to give anything
Yeah.
away. I don't want you to give away the film.
Right. Okay. So a brief concept is you're talking to somebody that has died and come back to life 5 times. And I go into real detail with one of them
Yeah.
that I can really, really photographically remember. I've had over 24 car wrecks, but I go into detail of, well, I know real good detail with one of them. And I picked the worst stories to tell. And I've survived very many, much, 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 and much complications and problems with diabetes.
Yeah.
So if someone who's a diabetic or has family members who are diabetic, this would really bring to light what it's like living and battling with that. And
And that came from early on. I mean, you had
mhm,
early diagnosis. This wasn't something that came out when you were 40.
yeah,
This was when you
it
were like,
was 7.
yeah,
Hmm.
man, that's a lot to handle. And as a 7-year old, I don't know how you even deal with that. I mean, you were talking about the stabbing of the fingers. Like, jeez,
Oh god,
torture,
yeah.
man.
I mean, it's and so there's also where I bring up, you know, things that a thing that happened to me recently about my godchildren
Yeah,
that were murdered. So I go into so if somebody out there has, I've just had somebody that I know personally that got murdered or might foul play or, I don't know how to deal with this. You can see the pain, the emotions, and the everything that I've went through dealing with that.
well, that
And
that had to be a choice to put that in because it wasn't
mhm,
necessarily expected as part of an autobiographical thing because it wasn't.
yeah,
You're related to the situation, but I saw it as well. The point of how many chances are, well, this is kind of what I've been through. And then I kind of got exposed to this whole thing, and keeping an
mhm,
eye on everything that's going on. This is another
yeah,
wild part of a life. So I mean,
right,
it was a trip to see that in there.
yeah,
That's a hell of a
yeah.
story.
Thank you. And like, yeah, so I tried to make it as short and brief. And I like to tell people, you know, never take the day for granted because you really don't know how many chances you're going to get in this life. So live each day to the fullest and to the best that you can.
And COVID has only enhanced that concept for everybody.
Right.
We're all
Hmm.
going, okay, what did I do today?
Right.
For me, I've been
Right.
making music. I had a drum set
Yeah.
for 25 years. Luckily, I closed it in 2017. So I'm in place. I was in place in my studio doing this stuff. So COVID was not as critical of an issue for me. It's been a pain in the ass, of course, but
Oh,
I
sure.
can continue to work and in isolation. My teaching
Hmm.
got affected a little bit, but I've been able to
Yeah.
learn Zoom and all the rest of that. And I don't think I could have done this.
That's,
So
yeah, that's
this is an
awesome.
ironic. This is an ironic, effect of that tragedy. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, people like myself who we like to just write. And, with everything that's happening with COVID, it's it's given me more time to sit and concentrate, hit, do my thing on the keyboard, just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So would you consider yourself a writer first versus filmmaker, or is it just kind of equal parts?
Uh, well,
Writing maybe happened first for you.
yeah, writing was my big success, I would say. The big, because if my book would have never come out, then I would have started
Yeah.
pursuing, and it just one thing led to the next, and
Yeah.
here I am on the Ed Hartman's Wild World Film Show.
There's really nothing more. I mean,
Right?
you've achieved your complete success.
Yeah,
Hey,
there's
so
yeah.
I got a question about your distribution. So you went to Amazon directly on that?
No,
No, you go through a distributor.
through a distributor. And my distributor, their name is My Spotlight Productions,
Hmm.
and they're in London, England. And it's funny because I made a documentary called The Mystery of Winnie Evans, and it's about my great aunt, and it's on Amazon. But for some reason, one of them saw it and they sent me a message
Uh,
on YouTube, right? Then I started emailing them. Then I had a video conference with them and everybody on their board when they were just getting going, and
mhm.
they adopted me more
Wow.
or less.
Yeah.
They was like, so here I am, I think what sealed the deal is when I was talking to all the head honchos on a Skype call.
Hmm.
I was like, they're English, so they're proper. They speak very fluently and they talk very proper.
Right.
Yeah, and I said, y'all just want to adopt a Harry Potter looking guy that talks like Forrest Gump, you know.
Yeah.
And they loved me after that. They
Oh man,
busted out
I think
laughing.
you got a reality series here. I think
Right,
if you went to England and interacted with people on the street, I think you'd have a hilarious series. Honestly,
right,
I'm telling you, you could be like Anthony Bourdain from
right.
Alabama. We're the chitlins, man.
Where
You
they
know?
at? They're like,
Well,
mate, who?
I was at the Myrtle Beach Film Festival in 2019 for my film, and went through Atlanta and got stuck in Atlanta overnight because of a plane problem.
Yeah,
Never left the hotel, but Myrtle Beach was fun. I
right. Oh
haven't been
yeah.
much in the southeast. I did when I went to Indiana University, and I did get into Georgia and Tennessee, and occasionally for trips
Mhm.
and stuff like that. It was beautiful areas down there.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah. The Great Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and southern Indiana was right at the beginning of the Bible Belt. So
Mm-hmm.
Bloomington and Brown County, and I think
Right.
I've been through Mississippi and you know
Yeah.
and drives to the West Coast. Never.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, I'm St. Louis. I've been to St. Louis. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
and Biloxi is what is that
Mm-hmm.
far south? That's toward
Mm-hmm.
that's on the coast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Biloxi is like if you go any more south in Biloxi, you're gonna hit the water. You're gonna hit the
Right. Right.
Gulf.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's like ground zero for hurricane stuff.
Oh, yeah.
you gotta you have like an X marks the spot occasionally.
I know. It's like people live on the Gulf Coast. It's like, well, it's hurricane season, and we start like being like those survivalists, you
Right.
know, and we're like, we're just going to pick up extra batteries and pick this up and this and
Right.
that, you
Right.
know, along the way. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, and the film is a really a combination of your speech, and then you did reenact some things, as far as I could tell,
mhm,
right? So that involved
mhm.
other people. I mean, you had to kind of
Yeah,
shoot that stuff and got friends and family, I imagine, that sort of thing involved. So it's well
yeah.
staged. Yeah, it's not bad. And again, I think you did a nice job of syncing the music to those scenes so that it has has nice flow to it and tension and builds stuff like that. And of
Thank
course, you could
you.
hire a composer next time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
suggesting it.
That's a very good idea for sure. Yeah.
Probably you'd probably pay less.
Probably.
Maybe
Yeah.
I don't
Probably
know.
would. Yeah.
Depends on the website.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have like 500 plus tracks. So I'm my own
Wow.
library on top of everything else. So I
Right.
can, and I work with libraries. I supply them with stuff, but I can. I've actually, when I've scored things, a lot of times I'll add a track that I already have. Like I did for this DACA film. I have a breaking news track, and I think it's
Oh
called Breaking
wow.
News, and
Yeah.
it worked well as a lead up to a news thing. So. That makes it easy for me. I don't have to, if I'm scoring, I have a whole, neat thing I can add to it. So yeah,
That is great.
yeah.
I
So
love that.
what are you currently working on? I mean, I see you're going to be promoting
Mhm.
this thing for the rest of your life, obviously, but
Yeah.
old films never die. You just
Yeah.
put them
Right.
out there, and we're all
um,
getting very rich on this. I know that, right? Sure.
yeah. Yeah. But I am currently right now writing out a limited series called
Really?
The History That Haunts Us. And it's a psychological slash horror series.
Wow. Wow.
That's what I've got the first episode written, and every day I'm plucking away. I'm writing page, as many as I can get in there in a day. And so once I get all four shows written,
Hmm.
that'll be my limited series.
Right.
And
Are you gonna
hopefully,
you gonna try and film it yourself? Or are you gonna?
I definitely am because, and I would, with when you start getting involved with people and their money and things like that, it's kind of like it reminds me of Ed Wood. Did you ever see that
Yeah.
movie
Oh
Ed
yeah.
Wood?
Yeah. Sure.
And they're like, and he comes up to his girlfriend and she's like, "So who did you con today?" He said, "Nobody." Well, who's paying for all this? And he's like, "That guy, this one guy offered me $50,000, but I had to make his nephew the lead man,
Right. That's right.
and it showed that poor guy. He was trying to read lines and he couldn't. He had
Right.
a
Yeah. The
so
chiropractor. I think the chiropractor played Lugosi.
yeah, he did. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so. Ed Wood is another little favorites of mine because he was like, I look at him like, yeah, I'm a indie guy, but
Yeah.
I've had some success.
Right.
So
And do you have kind of regular collaborators on this stuff? I'm not talking about illegal ventures, as you talk about that.
right,
Collaborators is an interesting term in this
uh,
case, but like
yeah,
film collaborators.
right.
I'll let people watch the movie to figure that one out. But
Uh, I do work with um like my style, I guess you would say, is kind of like a Kevin Smith thing. Like Kevin Smith when he makes his movies, you can pretty much expect Jason Mewes
right,
or it's somebody in his past of friends and family. It's going to show up in there.
that's right.
That's the way I am. I try to do my very best to throw in people that I know and I can work with, but I'm totally open to working with new people, because if you don't, you're never going to making it in the
Yeah.
film world. I mean, if you don't network.
Yeah, it's
So
a group sport for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
There's teams.
And
That's and
hmm
you watch award shows on my team. It really is a team, so to speak.
yeah.
On there.
hmm
And then what's your goal for the next 6 months to a year?
Well, I'm planning to hopefully be done with this writing in a couple of weeks. And once I got it, and then I show it to other people that work with me, and then I rewrite it, and then probably rewrite it again.
Yeah.
The world of script writing, to make it great or better, I should say, or, I'm going to go into pre production. And once I go into pre production mode, then I go into the mode of filming.
And I assume you're gonna film it locally.
As far as I can gather, it's going to be locally, or, if somebody sends me a picture or a video, and I would be like, then,
Right. Right.
but that's, why I have people that keep me in check. That's like, yes, I'm like, oh, I want to go to California, but you got to pay permits.
That's
Well,
right. Yeah. But
not
but
around
it is
here.
it's a fiction piece.
It is. It's a total fiction, psychological thriller slash horror.
Right. 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 Well, that's gonna be interesting. I'll be interested to see that when
Um,
it comes along.
mhm.
And finally, I think one reason I'm really enjoying doing this is I'm working on a biopic about Richard Lyford, the director of this film I did, and
Mhm.
he died in '85. So I don't have him to kind of. I have to gather his life and put it together, and I have a short doc that's going to be involved in it. Anyway, so I'm trying to understand the filmmaker's life and how to present it. That helps me with how I'm going to put this together. And I think what's extraordinary about actually like our discussion today and like this other filmmaker, Danny, is that Richard Lyford and you guys share a very interesting path in that you guys all were driven to do this, to become filmmakers, and you did this kind of really outside of any normal thing. And what's remarkable about Richard Lyford is he was able to pull off all this stuff. He did wind up working for Disney and direct an Academy Award-winning documentary, a few other things like that. But he was able to pull all this stuff off growing up in his teens. And he did this with very little resources. And I kind of see similarities with you guys on how you're doing this. What's remarkable about kind of both of you guys, because the other guys kind of also was in media as a news guy, but that you've been able to go from a story all the way onto a platform like Amazon. And that's such an amazing evolution of when Richard Lyford was around, where he's developing his own film and showing it in maybe at his high school at best.
Mhm.
What a change this is. And what I in the beginning of this program, when we have a little announcement about Anchor.fm, a wonderful podcaster platform, um, that I mentioned that anybody can create their own content. And you are probably one of the ultimate examples of this, in
Thank
that
you.
all it really takes is drive
Mhm.
to do this. And we have these tools now, literally a phone.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm in awe that it has nothing to do with quality of content or anything like that. I mean, who knows
Mhm.
what I've given up trying to critique anything anymore. I've decided, you know what? It's just not important to me. And I've always been like
Mhm.
that with music. I really,
Yeah.
if I don't like it, fine, who cares? But with film, I'm just amazed that people can do this. I mean, because I was
Yeah.
making Super 8, and it astounds me that any of us are able to create image like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it because we come from an era of Um, and where the new generation of filmmakers, they're not used to it, where you would go and make a film and it would be literal, film. And then you would show it at film festivals and you would be on just a prayer that somebody would see it and maybe offer you a big deal or some kind of to get it in Blockbuster or something that
Yeah.
yeah. And but now it has become so much easiger, I should say, rather than going out there and hustling like it used to be. You know, I mean, and now don't get me wrong, because now it's become a little bit easier. There's way more competition and
Yeah.
way more creative people that it's mind blowing. I
Yeah.
mean, you can just sit there on Amazon Prime for probably a whole year and just be like, type in
Yeah.
alien documentaries. And it's like, what? I mean, my God.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well, same things happen in music.
mm-hmm.
Anybody, his brother can have and sister can have, you can record a track on your phone and put it online. TikTok is blowing me
uh,
away as the ultimate of the 15 seconds of fame. Literally 15 seconds of fame. I have
yeah,
tracks that are
literal.
being used on TikTok through a couple of resources now. I'm actually making money.
Oh,
It's total
wow.
passive income. Three
Sure.
tracks are on over 3,500 videos. They had
Wow.
nothing to do with it. I think they just hit at the right time. So,
Yeah.
and they can be almost anything, and people just making these very quick things. So it's Andy
Mhm.
Warhol to the 10th.
Yeah.
He was way ahead on that. I mean,
Hmm.
I think when YouTube came, the 15 seconds of fame started to make more sense. Even on TV, it was even more on television with reality TV. But TikTok is taking it to a new level,
To
a
the level.
literal point. I mean, we had other postings of things, but TikTok is all about the short video form.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, everybody, So we have
Yeah.
content that's really amazing and stirring to kind of get through all that. So it's going to put the pressure on filmmakers to really push it a little bit. I mean,
Hmm.
you'll
Yeah.
be able to make stuff and simply get on there. I'm already hearing things about Amazon, starting to get a little more specific on what they want
Yeah.
on there, including
Hmm.
documentaries. And
That,
and
yeah,
my
they're,
distributor is talking about moving to IMDb right now
mhm.
because there's better paying there.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Uh, I mean, with what I always tell people who wants to get into filmmaking, I tell them there's two things that, and you can ask this guy, that the one you was just telling me about, who's making the documentary, about the bipolar and things, and he'll probably agree with me on this. One, if you're going to make a movie, make sure it's a story that's good. Don't make a story that's just crap. Just try to make it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. Is just try your best to tell your story the best you can. The second thing is, after you make your movie, if you can sit there and watch your own movie and say, wow, I enjoyed
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you know what? Job well done. Job
Yeah.
well done. If
Yeah.
you're happy with what you've made, then just hope that whoever else is
That's
going
a
to get
that's a
some
really
enjoyment.
important point because it's very easy to make stuff and then kind of cringe when you watch it, and you kind of go
Mm-hmm.
back. And I made music I really can't stand. It's the same
Yeah.
thing there to this day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's tracks that I didn't like and they still got used. So I don't know. I do like As the Earth Turns a lot as a film. I've watched it a couple times. I watched it occasionally just to kind of check myself on it, and it was so fun to make
Hmm.
because it was all silent and music was wall to wall. But man, I agree on that, and it's a lot of work to do it though. I mean, there's
Hmm.
so many steps, and it's not just shooting it. There's editing and then the process of what do you do with it? Where does it go? How do you get it out
Yeah.
there? You know, what's the future look like? So,
Hmm.
and the death of physical media. Although I'm hearing people saying CDs need to come back.
Yeah, right.
We're already at a retro point where people are missing CDs.
I know.
I don't know. That one, I do miss vinyl, and I still have vinyl. So, nice round,
Right.
crackly sound. Yeah.
My props manager, that's what he listens to is
Yeah.
vinyl records. I mean,
Well,
and
the biggest thing I've noticed about that is that with vinyl, you listen to a half a side of a record, and then you flip it over and listen to it. It's an experience. You sit
yeah.
back, you got to speak big speakers, not little things, big speakers,
Hmm.
or headphones or something, and you just zone out, and the albums were made with that in mind, of each side kind of having a different story to it. And everything
Hmm.
is now tracks. So,
Yeah.
the closest thing you have is a playlist. But, and you listen on any kind of a network that has advertising popping in, YouTube, whatever, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of, and then you hear this, and into something else. Like, what? No. And I made it, I know, where I took a lot of care on what track led into the next and how much time. And that's very similar to editing film.
Yeah.
Do that. And even watching a film on a commercial station, it can be jarring, when you watch your own
Hmm.
thing and all of a sudden you have some Ford commercial coming in or something.
Yeah.
Man, really? I was getting into it. I was trying to watch Groundhog Day, and it was I had it on recording on like YouTube TV or whatever, and but it had commercials in it, and I couldn't speed through them, and I couldn't watch it. That movie's just I need to watch that movie from beginning, and it's too cheap to purchase it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
okay. I think we've exhausted everything there is. So, is there any remaining thoughts about this that you can think of to motivate people to go and watch your film? Paying them
well.
outright, bribe them. Oh, and
Well,
make sure you rate the film. That's a big deal.
sure,
It
yeah.
it really helps. I know it really does, and that's how
Hmm.
Amazon's algorithms work. If people
Yeah.
rate it, people should hit stars and whatever. They don't have to write a thing, but if they at least do the star thing, it's a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah,
Yeah, it really is. If you are somebody that you just want to see something that's not blockbuster, that's that's not one of the big Pirates of the Caribbean, Avengers movie, or that kind of thing, and you're like, I want to see the rags to riches story. I want to see the underdog story. I want to see that thing that I have not heard of. Then how many chances is definitely a good thing that you could watch that would be, well, it would not only kill about 2 hours of your day, but it would be it would be something that I think you as or anybody who would watch it, there's something in this movie that could apply to you. And if it doesn't apply to you, it could apply to someone that you know. And
yeah,
that would be to me how many chances.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Creighton. I appreciate everything you've done, and good luck with your
Mhm.
projects in the future. And if I can be of help, let me know. I have
Heck
learned some
yeah.
tricks about this, and so anyway, we will be in touch. And thank you all out
Mm.
there for listening, and keep an eye open on this channel or this whatever the hell it is. There's a lot more coming. I'm going to be doing more episodes about film scoring and things like that. I may talk to other people in the industry. I did talk to a cinematographer recently, and that was a fascinating discussion. Really was unexpected.
Mm.
So I can see myself moving into music supervisors and different parts of the industry as I go. But it's
Right.
hopefully with a little bit of a bent toward the music side of things too. That's just me. But again, the filmmaking side is critical to all of this, and I think that's the issue. This is all about media, and and how to create things, and learning about it, and understanding you can do this even if you don't have a lot of money or whatever. The tools are at hand. You know, there's really no excuse not to just create your own media at this point. Okay? So thank you,
That's right.
mucho, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. All right. Bye, y'all.